these are our youth, and I hate to be so cliche, but the youth are our future.
Absolutely.
And to know that there are youth there that may not have, the supports and just the confidants, of family and, that type of connection. And just to be able to be that person and to help them to have that voice and to let them know it's okay, to have a voice and speak on it.
We're good to go.
Hello, and welcome to Hairitage Talks. I am so excited because it's Foster Care Awareness Month, and we want to highlight all the good things that's taking place here in Illinois for foster youth. I have two very special guests with me today. The first, Jamika Smith, and the second, Christina Wolken. And we're going to have a fantastic conversation about what's going on with foster youth. Christina, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your role here in Illinois?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. As she said, my name's Christina Wolken, and I work for Be Strong Families as the DCFS Youth Advisory Board Project Manager, along with my colleague, Jamika. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jamika Smith. I also work for Be Strong Families. I am the Illinois DCFS Youth Advisory Board Program Manager. So I'm in charge of everything programmatic when it comes to the Youth Advisory Board, and happy to be here today.
Wonderful. So last year we had the opportunity to interview two very special guests who were a part of a new bill that was introduced here in Illinois, HB 5097. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get to that, let's talk about Be Strong Families. What is Be Strong Families?
Yeah, so Be Strong Families is really about reweaving the fabric of society, one conversation at a time, and what that means to really care for families. And so the aspect of Be Strong Families that Jamika and I work with is the Youth Advisory Board. So in the state of Illinois, it's actually a state mandate, which is really cool and unique, that youth who are in care, current and former youth, ages 14 to 21, have representation and have their voices heard. And so what that looks like is a state mandated youth advisory board. So Jamika and I help run that board and ensure that those youth's voices are really heard. And I'll let Jamika share a little bit about what that structure looks like of the board. But it's really neat because it's a platform where not only are youth able to speak up, but they're also able to actually advocate for and make change within a system that they didn't want to be placed in. So it's really near and dear to my heart to be able to stand next to them and really watch them flourish.
Thank you, Christina.
Yeah.
So as Christina mentioned, the Youth Advisory Board is mandated to advise DCFS on the systemic issues and concerns involving the system. How we do that is through, we meet quarterly with the director of DCFS. And this is the opportunity for youth to speak up to the director and discuss some of the things that we're hearing throughout the state. So you may wonder, how do we hear throughout the state when you have a board of youth? Well, how we function as a board is that we convene on a regional level. So there's 4 levels. There's the northern, the Cook, the central, and the southern region. And each of those regions, they convene monthly. And in those monthly meetings, there's a time where youth share their issues and concerns that are ongoing that they're noticing as being a youth in care. We build up on some leadership development skills. And also there's an opportunity for youth to talk about priority initiatives, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second. But as I was saying, those meetings convene monthly. In each one of those regions, we have 5 officers. So there's a president, a vice president, secretary, sergeant at arms, and executive team lead. And those 5 youth, they serve as leadership for each of those regions. So their main goal is to make sure that they are hearing and advocating for the youth in those regions from what is being stated at those meetings. With that being said, each of those 5 officers from every region, they make up the statewide board. Mm-hmm. So every quarter, The statewide board convenes over a weekend, and all 20 of those officers, if we have a full slate, which we usually do and we always aim to, they convene and they bring back all of the information from each region. And that's how we're able to converse on a statewide level to really address what are we seeing that is consistent throughout the state and what may be a little bit different in certain regions. And based on that information, the youth choose priority initiatives, which are just basically the main focuses, main concerns or issues that they want to focus on for that fiscal year. And this is what we'll be advising the department on, whether it's, collaboration or just we maybe need more follow-up to understand, what's going on. And then sometimes, of course, things go to legislation such as HB 5097. So that's kind of how we got there.
Yes, and I was so excited to hear about the bill. As you guys know, Styles for Kids, we're on a mission to serve kids who are in adoption, transracial adopted, who are fostered, and they're looking for hair care services and education. And so when I heard about the bill, I was so excited to see that the kids, for the first time, were making their voices known about an issue that I have just observed them living with in my field of work for now 15 years. And so I'm excited to see what's going to happen as this bill rolls out. And so let's talk a little bit about that. How did this advocacy come about with the youth for HB 5097?
Yeah, I'll let Jamika speak to that origination a little, and I'm happy to jump in. I jumped in with the board right as they were introducing the legislation, so right as it was gaining momentum in Springfield. And so Jamika was there the year before because there was a lot of work that went into it actually becoming a bill and what that looked like to get a sponsor and to write the bill. So I'll let Jamika address that.
Yeah, so again, from our monthly regional meetings, one of the concerns that we were starting to hear around the end of 2023, we were hearing a lot of youth coming and having concerns about hair care on different levels. There was hair care associated with health issues, with scalp and treatments and things like that. There was hair care issues involved with more cultural aspects, so such as youth being placed in maybe foster homes or agencies with a different demographic of caregivers culturally than what they are. So that was another issue. Another issue with the hair care was also that we were hearing had a lot to do with gender identity, right? Youth identifying themselves as maybe a gender that they weren't assigned as birth, and foster parents or maybe caregivers not understanding what that meant. So as we were starting to hear some of these issues, the youth decided that this was a little bit more important than originally just a conversation. And they wanted to take some action on that. So some of the issues that we were hearing were, I'll just give an example. One of the youth had a sibling who had extreme psoriasis of the scalp, an African-American young lady, and was placed in the home of a Caucasian foster family who, one, didn't understand Black hair care, didn't realize the psoriasis and the impact that it could have untreated. And ultimately, the young lady ended up losing almost all of her hair because it went untreated for so long. And not to blame fault, it was just a lack of knowledge from the foster parents who had never, dealt with African-American hair or even received training on how to deal with African-American hair. We had another story from another young lady whose brother had, their family had been growing their locks out since birth. It was kind of like a family tradition, cultural tradition, and they were placed in care as well temporarily. And during that time, they were also placed in the home of a Caucasian family who didn't understand, again, African-American hair, and decided they didn't know what to do with the locks, and so the best would do to get a haircut. And this family had been growing this youth's hair, I think, for 9 or 10 years. I think that's how old the young man was. So when the young man returned home to his birth family, it caused kind of an uproar because that was something that was near and dear to their family tradition and also culture. And then you can only imagine the stories that we heard when it comes to gender identity and things like that, especially foster parents wanting, you're a girl, you're going to stay a girl. No, you can't get a buzz cut, or, you can't wear a fade. So those are just some of the instances and stories that we were hearing that really made the children want to, rally around and advocate that they be treated the same as, youth that are not in care when it comes to hair care, and that their hair care be respected, and also that everyone understands the connection with hair care and mental health. I mean, we all know when you look good, you feel good, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you're already, dealing with things as being a foster youth and trying to find your place in life, the last thing you want to do is be at school and look out of place because of, the misinformation from where you're living. So I think that was really the heart of the hair care bill and how it started. And so once we decided that that's what we wanted to kind of tackle, it went on from there really fast. And I'll let Christina talk a little bit more about how that developed so quickly.
Yeah, I think, first of all, one of the things that Jamika and I talk about a lot with the hair care bill is, look, we're old. We're adults, okay? Like, let's just a spade.
Yeah.
And we also know with that comes like politics, right? And adults a lot of times can sit behind closed doors and argue about things for years, even when you have common ground. And so I think one of the things that's beautiful about the hair care bill, and that is beautiful about the board, is that it was fully youth driven. And again, one of the things we talk about is if it was us adults driving it, we would still be talking about it.
And let me just say, not to cut you off, but I love that. I love that this was their voice. This is them saying, this is what we need. And they fought for it. I mean, it's just amazing to see the resilience of these young.
It absolutely was and still is. And we'll talk a little bit about where they are in the process now, but they helped write the bill. We have some awesome other connections, right? We work with Loyola School of Law a lot. They helped them find a sponsor, but then the youth went and testified, which was really, I feel like, a poignant moment in the bill getting full support. So I don't know if you've ever been in Springfield, but a lot of times when you walk in, nobody's really paying attention and there's like a ton of side chatter and like, then they vote on something. So there's not oftentimes like really holistic attention, full attention. And the youth went to testify and were very nervous, frankly, and had prepared ahead of time and really wanted to advocate and share across the state of Illinois the stories they had heard. And they had documented those stories of how not having appropriate hair care had impacted youth physically and emotionally, and that it needed to change. And so they were, and they're ready to go. We walked in, everybody's talking. And they're like looking at Jamika and I like, this is what we're going to go in and talk in here. And we're like, you got this, like you're prepared, like even if they don't quiet down. When I tell you they sat down and they started talking and you could have heard a pin drop in the room. And they had everyone's attention. And the amount of visceral response from the adults in the room, it was palpable. Like they had no idea that like this was an issue and that it was an ongoing issue and that there wasn't anything being done about it. And so I feel like that momentum just continued to carry from there, where it passed through the House into the Senate. The youth went and testified again. And really also during these times, right, we know when a bill is passing, you have lots of negotiations. And another really cool thing is that the youth drove those negotiations too.
Wow.
So they were meeting with DCFS regularly. DCFS was in support of the bill, but there was different things, right, negotiated. Do we want this in the bill or do we want it in rules or in regulations? Or will this impact, this part of another bill? And so really, I mean, there were weeks where the youth were on calls 4 out of 5 nights of the week for 2 and 3 hours every night. Yeah. Yes. Really working and not only meeting and negotiating with stakeholders, but then going and doing the research outside of that. And so again, all youth driven. Jamika and I are standing right next to them. But again, we're just there as support and telling them you've got this. Like you have the skills, you have the knowledge, and you have the power, and keep driving forward. And so, I mean, it passed and was signed into law by the governor. And one of the negotiations that the youth had with DCFS specifically was they said, hey, like, we really want our voice to continue to be heard in this process. So would it be possible that we participate in the rulemaking process within DCFS after the bill is passed?
Yes,
And it was,
that's right.
and it was a resounding absolutely.
Yes.
And so for the past almost year, we've had 2 of our interns who helped drive the bill in weekly meetings with DCFS policy, working on writing the rules and regulations, and then taking that back again, that whole state, right? The flow of information is so important so that the youth's voice are really heard. So then they're taking that information back to the whole board and going, hey, these are some of the things that we're talking about putting in, and what do you think about that? And what are we missing here? And what about this definition? Is there something we're missing? And so they're actually still in that process right now, working with DCFS to make sure that those rules and regulations are really like also youth driven, that it's not just the law that's youth driven, but it's how the law is carried out, which is incredible.
That is incredible. And I love HB 5097 says that every child in foster care has to have a plan, and they get a say.
Yeah.
So that this young man's experience of losing his locks doesn't happen for another youth.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yes.
And I can hear and see the passion that both of you have for this. And I want you to speak to that. Why are you passionate about this, Christina? Why are you passionate about this, Jamika?
I'll pass off to you. I've been talking for a minute.
My babies.
Yep, I knew she was going to say that.
My babies. You know, and that's just what it is. It's, you know, these are our youth, and I hate to be so cliche, but the youth are our future.
Absolutely.
And to know that there are youth there that may not have, you know, the supports and just the confidants, you know, of family and, you know, that type of connection. And just to be able to be that person and to help them to have that voice and to let them know it's okay, you know, to have a voice and speak on it. And I know our titles are managers. I'm program manager and Christina is project manager. But with the youth, we're adult partners.
I love that.
And and so we stand beside them and we support them as adult partners. We don't always agree with what they say, but we always encourage them to speak truth to power. You know, your voice. We're not going through what you're going through. You know, we haven't experienced some of the same things that you have experienced. So we'll stand firm with you. You know, if you're really this heavy into it and feels like it needs this form of advocacy, we will stand near to you. And it's just the love. Like my passion is just the love for the youth, the love to help others. It was kind of instilled from me. I come from, you know, my grandmother was a very big advocate and activist in the community, and it kind of passed down to me. But it's just, like I said, it's the kids. And when people say, how many kids do you have? I say, I birthed 5, but I have about 150 kids, because that's what they are. And so when you get to times of the year like now, when everybody's going to prom and graduation and all, they're having all these milestone events, it's so fulfilling and awarding that we receive those invites. When they're looking out in the crowd after graduation, they're looking for Miss Christina and Miss Jamika. And when they're at their prom send-offs, they want us to come and take the pictures. Or when they're having hard nights, they're calling our phones, you know. They're texting our phones. When they just don't know what to do, it's us that they're reaching out to. So that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me interested in seeing things like them progress in the HB 5097 and me telling them, when you have kids and you have grandbabies, you could tell them you wrote a bill.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
And, you know, that's just my pledge. And that's just, you know, my promise and my purpose in life is just to, you know, if we can help one, if we can help two, I feel like you've done a job well done. And I'm just very blessed to be put in a position where I can help hundreds and thousands. There's over 21,000 youth in care in the state of Illinois, and to be able to be someone to stand beside them and someone that they can confide in is truly a blessing. And I'm lucky to be here.
Thank you for the work that you do, both of you. Thank you for the work that you do, and you'll see the ripple effects of your work. It'll be, you see it now, but you may not be here to see the legacy building.
You know what? That's so true. And that's one of the things we talk with the youth about so much, because a lot of the youth, right, the board is ages 14 to 21. And our board is a little bit older. A lot of them are getting ready to age out or in college, right? And it can be emotional to look at the amount of work and advocacy they're putting into something that isn't necessarily going to help them or prevent trauma they've experienced. And so that's something we talk a lot with them about, is like the beauty of being able to have that ripple effect and to be able to help or prevent trauma of even one other person, and that they've done that. And I think Jamika spoke so beautifully. I mean, I agree with everything. And it's really about the worth and value of them as a human being. And the fact that their voice matters, and that any amount or iota of privilege that we have as adult partners, we are going to use to lift them up and to stand beside them. Because frankly, a lot of times they don't need lifted up. They're already flying. Right? Like they're already flying. They just need somebody to say, do you realize what you're doing? How incredible you are? Like, look in the mirror and tell yourself that. And I think that's what the heart moment is like, when they can look at themselves and go, I did that, or I can do that. And we have youth come back. We had 1 month, oh my gosh, we had 1 month at every one of our regional board meetings. We had a youth that had either aged out or was close to aging out and had transitioned away from the board because they had all these other wonderful things going on in their life. 1 month we had every single one of our board meetings, one of those youth came back to every region.
Oh, that's
fantastic. We didn't know.
Yes.
We didn't know. And we're talking, and I'm like, you know who came back? And she's like, I had the same thing with this youth. And just came back and like spoke to the board and us about like the impact and how grateful they were, and that they knew they could come back. Yeah. And they could say, hey, and like, look at what I'm doing and how amazing it is. And so I think that's it. And every person deserves to have that support and love.
Yes. So. And I always say at the Styles for Kids salon, we get to watch the kids grow up right in front of us. And we get to have a contribution in how they turn out as youth, right? Because whatever challenges and traumas that they're experiencing, we get to be a part of the healing process.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
I had one of the youth tell me, a college student who had recently discovered the Youth Advisory Board while they were in their last semester of college. And I just found this out recently. They graduated last year, but they're still part of the board. But had told me, you know, they were on the brinks of dropping out. They actually were about to drop out. And they just happened to hear about the Youth Advisory Board, and they came to one of the meetings, and it was located in Urbana-Champaign, where they were going to school at for college. And it was that moment, them joining the Youth Advisory Board, which gave them enough momentum and gave them enough hope and inspiration to want to continue that last semester of college. And now it's going forward to get their master's degree. But just moments like those, and like Christina said, they always reach back. I just attended a graduation of a youth. I've been with Be Strong Families for about 3 years. And so this was a youth that was there when I first started, and has since decided they wanted to go back to a life of more of normalcy and wanted to get away from like DCFS things. So that's the reason why they left the board. And we encourage that, right? If they're leaving the board for work or extracurriculars or anything like, we encourage that, because we want you to have a life of normalcy. You know, we don't want everything in your life to be about DCFS. But with that being said, I hadn't seen this youth in about 2 years, and he called me up and said, hey, Miss Jamika, I'm graduating. You got to be in my graduation. You know, you were a pillar, you know, in why I am here where I am now. And like Christina said, it's just those phone calls and, you know, those little check-ins. Hey, how you doing? How's the board going? That we thrive so much.
Or here's a picture of my coffee. I swear, the amount of pictures I get of, I'm like, guys, I don't know if it's, I think it's because I had a big Dunkin' the first time I met a lot of them. I'm like, come on now. But like, it's also the simple things, right? Where it's like, so much of the conversations we have with the youth are like very deep and heavy and like they're healing a part of us and they're healing a part of them at the same time and they don't realize it, but it's heavy. And so it's also like those sweet moments where it's just like, this is normal life, that I'd send you a picture of my coffee and rib you because, Christina, you can't figure technology out. Right? Like, so it's those little things too, where it's just like any bit of normalcy of like, this is a normal conversation you would have with a safe adult in your life, right? Where it doesn't always have to be like about a major trauma or about like something big that's happening. We're here for that too. Absolutely. But we're also here for the simple stuff, like it doesn't always have to be something big.
Pictures of nephews and nieces.
Yes.
And we get all of those.
I'm a TT now. Yes. Oh, I love it.
And we probably could go on and on and on about the board because we love it so much and we love our work. But one thing I did want to recognize that I don't think Christina or I mentioned is by the board being statewide, that is one constant that the youth have no matter what.
Oh, that's
amazing. So if
amazing.
they're living here in the Chicago area and their placement ends up being down in Centralia or Mount Vernon or no matter what, there's always a youth advisory board. So they can transfer from the regional meetings here in this region to, the southern or the central or the northern. So that's one constant, and they do. When they leave, when they hear that they're getting moved or, placed somewhere else, that's the first thing they say, Miss Jamika, what days are the youth advisory board meetings if I move here? And will I be able to get there? Will you, make sure that I'm there? Can you call my caseworker? So it's family, and it's family that's always going to be there no matter where they are as long as they're in the state of Illinois. And so I think that is just another thing that really keeps our youth involved, and it's really an attraction to the youth as well to know that they've built this family.
Yeah. And it's great that they have that support, and it really needs to be in every state.
Yes.
That they have this kind of support. Let's talk a little bit, because it is Foster Care Awareness Month, so let's talk a little bit about what are some of the other barriers and challenges that foster youth experience and how they can reach out for more support if they're in a situation? Because I think about youth that have come our way many times and they don't really have the support that they need. So let's talk a little bit about barriers and challenges and what to do if you are in a state where you don't have YAB.
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say specifically some of the barriers that we've been talking with our youth about this year have to do with advocacy, and also have to do with aging out and what it means to become an independent human being, which none of us are independent. We're all interdependent. And so that's fascinating to me that we push them towards independence when really they still need a support network of people around them who love and support them no matter what. And so one of the things the board has actually been working on this year and given input on is another bill that will actually set up an earlier time within their story of DCFS to be able to start thinking about what it means to age out of care. Because we do know, unfortunately, that the vast majority of teens who are in care are going to age out of care. There's not a lot of family reunification at that point, and a lot of foster families do not take in older youth. So they often end up in residential settings, ILOs, TLPs, and have to really figure it out kind of on their own. And so they've really been working on what does that look like to put some supports around that are more systemic supports. It's not just based on who your caseworker is. So they've been working on that with the Star Hearings Bill, SB 1504, which did pass, which is very exciting. And then I don't know if you want to talk some about accessible advocacy and their work with the department on that.
Yeah, we're also working really closely with Department of DCFS Advocacy Office. There were, youth were telling us in regards to advocacy, just that they didn't feel empowered a lot to advocate for themselves when there were, I would say, specific concerns or issues when they had to advocate for themselves. And so we were noticing like they would be making, maybe they couldn't get in contact with their caseworker, and so that they would, tell these issues and concerns to the advocacy office. And a lot of times they didn't feel like they were resolved in the manner that they felt it should be resolved. Or a lot of times they were just scared to even advocate for themselves and turn in these issues and concerns because of retaliation or retribution. So that was one of the really big things that we've been working on for this last fiscal year. And luckily, there at the Department of DCFS, we have some really good staff that work within the department that really identified, yes, there could be some changes, both inter and external when it comes to the advocacy department. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working really closely with them at looking at, different ways in which it could work for the youth and, again, for the department in the way that it was constructed to work. So, again, like we said, our goal is to collaborate with the department, and to a lot of things is just knowledge, lack of knowledge for the youth in care. There's so many rules, there's so many regulations, there's so many, and a lot is just getting that information out there. And we're just blessed, especially with the new director of DCFS, who is really, I would say she's really, her goal is really to, take on the voice of the youth and really hear them out and make those changes. So, with her being the lead, the department is really following with that. So we are, like I said, in a really good position to work with them. And we've been doing that with the advocacy department as of this past fiscal year.
Yeah, I think with that, one of the things we work on the youth with at every meeting is youth leadership development. And the youth actually lead the meetings, so the youth are teaching other youth how to be leaders, which is really incredible.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's honestly, like I said, I learned so much from them. But in thinking about, right, they have a platform and they have a space in Illinois, right? It is a state mandate, which is incredible, right?
It is incredible.
To take the youth advisory board, nobody wants to, but right, it would take so much to do that. And we also recognize that not every state has a youth advisory board. We've actually been working on and doing research with our board about what other states offer and which states have youth advisory boards and what they look like. And I would say one of the biggest things is understanding that connection is power. And so I think for our youth, they really experience that firsthand. And so I would say for other adults and other youth in spaces that don't necessarily have a youth advisory board, that would be my first go-to is connection is power, and don't allow others to tell you that your voice doesn't matter. And so it can feel really uncomfortable to advocate. And you can feel right when there's a power dynamic, because that is a reality, right? There is a power dynamic when a youth speaks up. Because of the way our society is constructed, not everyone believes that a youth's voice is important or matters.
That's right.
Except for it's their experience and it does matter. And so I would say sitting in that discomfort and being willing to be in that discomfort, and you will find community within that, right? Like you will find your people, you will find adults who will listen and who will stand next to you, but you also have to be willing to be in that discomfort. But also know it's not going to be forever. That discomfort's not going to be forever, right? But like, I think that's even part of the youth testifying, right? Like we talked to them about, like, this is going to probably feel uncomfortable. And like, one, we're here standing beside you. Like, you got this. But like that discomfort brings beauty, right? And brought the hair care bill to fruition. And so I think that would be one of my pieces of advice to any youth, right, who is looking to advocate, and even as an adult. I don't like being uncomfortable. Okay,
none of us do.
I
but
want to be
required in this work.
It is.
It is.
And the more times you practice being uncomfortable, the less uncomfortable it actually feels.
100%.
Yeah.
And so that's where it is. And man, I wish every youth had an opportunity to feel heard, because that's really what it's about. Like, their voices matter.
Well,
And we do encourage the youth, because we know not all youth are going to come to the youth advisory board. Not
Right.
all have access. Some have never even heard of the youth advisory board. But we do, encourage them, as we're talking about issues and concerns, step outside of yourself, talk about other situations that you're hearing from your peers in care, or, people that live in the same placement with you. What are the major concerns? We can't just focus on, the people that are in the room, because we're advocating for 21,000 youth in care. So we need to make sure that we're covering a broad range of, the effects that all are feeling. So, and our youth are really good about that. I don't feel like any of them are selfish. None of the conversation is selfish. This is, I've experienced this, or, my peer has experienced this. And I think that that's how we reach as many youth as we can, and make sure that we're advocating for as many youth as we can, is because we want to hear experiences, whether it's directly from them or third party, but we want to know what's going on.
Absolutely. And as parents, I'm sorry, I'm going to speak right to the camera right now. As parents, it is your job to know what's going on. And it's also your job to advocate for your children. And that is the reason why we started our parent advocacy group. So parents out there, if you are interested in getting involved in things like HB 5097 and advocating for your foster youth or your transracial adopted child, you need to be joining our parent advocacy group. And our parents are moving forward with events, and we're moving in the direction of legislation. So you don't want to miss this bus. Make sure you get on it, right?
Yes.
To be a part of moving things forward for our youth. They're the ones that's going to be taking care of us.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we have to invest in them now so they know how to advocate for themselves. And then we're providing a way for us to advocate for them and to have a network. I love that. There's power in connection.
Yes.
And so we got to stay connected. As we wrap up here, tell us, how can we be involved with Be Strong and families in your efforts to help our youth?
Oh, right on. I'm going to pass that to Jamika, because she got some exciting stuff happening.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, one thing that I did want to highlight, as a celebration of the hair care bill, Be Strong Families is hosting a hair care symposium at the close of this year. So December 13th at Governor State University, we'll be hosting a hair care symposium, and this will allow for guardians and caregivers of youth in care to come and not only just learn more about the hair care bill, but actually get some hands-on workshops, tutorials. There'll be some panels, and just an opportunity for them to possibly get some of that training that they'll need in order to fulfill, the requirements of the hair care bill. I don't know if we exactly said what the hair care bill encompasses, but it ensures that all youth in care have a hair care plan, as you stated, Jamika. But that's in collaboration with the youth, their caseworker, and their biological parents, if the youth chooses. And so this hair care symposium that we're hosting at the close of this year to celebrate that hair care bill is that opportunity for those caregivers, staff, foster parents, anyone who's in direct care of a youth in care to come and get that experience and learn more about the hair care bill. And we're hoping to make this an annual event. So
yeah, it's really like a call to action, right? It's we get it. And Jamika was one of the initial driving forces of we've got to do something, right? We've got to do something. There's got to be a next step. It can't just be this is it. Right. And so really being able to bring together, again, that connection, that community of right? We might have biological parents there. We're going to have foster parents. We're going to have residential staff. We're going to have the youth, and really being able to say okay, this is joy and light. This is something good. And we're going to give you the tools to make sure that it stays something good, right? That it doesn't become a burden to talk about the hair care bill or about having a hair care plan, but that it's actually joy, right? And that it's beauty.
This
and
is a good thing.
Yes. Yes.
Great.
And it doesn't become that burden, right?
Yeah.
Because we all get it, right? Like as adults, especially, and the youth feel it too. Like you can have laws, you can have rules and regs, but like it's really the supports around that stuff that make it happen. And so I think that's like Be Strong Families took that on and said like, we really want to continue like this work and make sure that it's out there. And so Jamika's been working hard on planning that. And really, again, it's another time, and we all know this is so important, but it's another time where youth input matters.
Yes.
And it's not just the input, right? It's the what would you want to see from this? So really making sure that youth are still at the center and that it's not just adults coming in and taking over, right?
Yes.
So I think we're very excited about that.
Very.
The other call to action, how you can get involved, I would say, is one, current and former youth in care. So could be adopted out, reunified, currently in care, ages 14 to 21. You know them, bring them to the board.
Oh, that's good.
Let us
bring them to the events.
Bring them, get involved. We would love to have them on the board, but even we have multiple events throughout the year. And maybe like you don't have a connection with those youth. We are always looking for youth engagement workers, okay? Let me tell you.
I love that.
So one of the things that, right, we try to remove as many barriers as possible for youth being able to be engaged in the board. And one of those barriers is always transportation, right? We're a big state. And we've only got 4 regional boards. So like getting youth to a meeting, we really value in person. We do have a hybrid option, but like it's such a difference when a youth can come and sit with their peers.
Yes, the power connection.
Yes. Yes. And so we have youth engagement workers who are background checked and trained, they're trauma informed, and their whole job is to engage with youth, and they drive around and pick them up throughout the state, right?
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a
and
wonderful role.
And it's paid.
Yes.
It's a contract position. So I'm just saying, but that's one of the ways too that like you may not, I think too, a lot of times when you think about advocacy, it's like these big things that you do, but something as small as like once a month being a youth engagement worker who gets to have conversations with youth while you drive, like that's so healing and beautiful.
It's powerful.
And you're a part of their story then. So little plug for that. We always need some more youth engagement workers.
That's your passion, and you want to work with the youth and the opportunity. It's a really good opportunity. Our youth engagement workers, they really enjoy their job and being able to connect with the youth as well.
Well, and the youth love them too. It's always like
more support.
Yes. Is Miss Tanelia? Miss Tanelia is on is one of our colleagues at Be Strong Families, but she took on the role of driving youth a lot of the time when we didn't have enough youth engagement workers. And they're like, where's Miss Tanelia? Like, I thought she was picking me up, So like that connection lasts even past that time, which is really beautiful.
Yeah, well, we look forward to having a role in the symposium. And I love that you guys are putting to action. This is not something we're just rolling out, but we're giving you a way, a path forward. And there's beauty in that. So thank you for providing that. Yes. So as we wrap up here, any closing thoughts that you guys want to give before I tell everyone out there how they can get involved with Styles for Kids?
I'm just grateful for you. I feel like you got to shout out to all of your hard work. And really, I think one of the things that strikes me and I want to say thank you for is you immediately stepping in and being one of those people who stands beside the youth.
Absolutely.
And that was my first impression with you was like, I'm right here toe to toe. Like, what do you need? And so I think that's the beauty of the work is that connection and that community. And we're so grateful to have that partnership. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And thank you for what you're doing. As you were just sharing that, it made me think of one of the young ladies who lived in residential care. One of the first young ladies that I served with hair care services. And she gave me the biggest hug after we were done, but it was her story that I will never forget. And at the end of the service, she said, I am so glad that I'll be able to go to school on Monday. I'm already on the white bus. Everybody knows that I don't have parents, but at least my hair will be done.
Oh, yep.
I will never forget her. I will never forget the impact that I've had on her life. And even just the small difference that I made for her that on Monday,
Yep.
she was going to go to school with her hair done. And the gift now that we're going to provide for all the kids who are in care through this bill, through the initiative that's moving forward, and all of the work that we're doing that we'll be able to see the fruit of. So thank you for what you're doing as well. And to all our parents out there who are caring for youth in care, be a part of this, right? Welcome this legislation with open arms and figure out what do I need to do to make sure that my youth is prepared for the world, because that's what we're literally doing is we're preparing them for the world. If you're not on the Styles for Kids mailing list, go to the Styles for Kids website right now and get on the mailing list so that you can be up to date with this new legislation. We're like sending the news out when the symposium hits and all that information, you guys will get it first. In addition to that, for those of you who are in other states, we are standing beside you.
Yes.
Join our parent advocacy groups. Go to our website, click join the mission. You'll get more information about how to join a group near you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us, Jamika.
You're welcome.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. And we'll see you in August with our back to school edition of Hairitage Talks.